Hello everyone, welcome to HobbyEXP. My name is Cheston and I am very delighted and honored to have as a distinguished guest an internationally recognized judge, Mr. Jacob. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob. I am as Cheston put, a international judge for the One Piece TCG and a judge for many other card games and competitive player for a pretty long time.
Wow, that's amazing. How did you get into judging first and foremost? Obviously, probably grassroots, getting into the card games and whatnot. But yeah, what sort of
Mhm.
sparks that initial desire there?
Yeah, well, actually, funny story. My initial first judging experience was an accident. Well, not an accident. It was like a emergency request thing. I was planning to
Oh,
play that event. It was a Yu-Gi-Oh event
okay,
um,
cool.
back in 2013, I would say.
Oh,
Is a long
okay.
time ago. Yeah.
A hot minute, a hot minute.
Um, yeah, that's sure. My brother and I used to travel. My brother and our friends used to travel all around Australia to play Yu-Gi-Oh, all the regionals and all that. And I remember getting to one event, and
Hmm.
I got familiar with the people, the staff, because the same kind of people are on the game. So you get kind of doing that for so long, you get comfortable with everyone. And then I got there one day, and the judge came to me and was like, "Hey, I've had a couple of judges pull out. I know you. I know you know what you're talking about. I know you got the level one judge exam, which everyone did because we were all very pretentious Yu-Gi-Oh players, and if you didn't have the level one, you wouldn't be recognized. So everyone had it anyway. Um,
Don't
so he
fact
was like, "Oh,
check
you
me,
got your level
bro.
one." Actually, it's like I have a here's my level one,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, I'm legit. I'm legit.
Yeah, actually. And then yeah, he asked, he's like, "Look, I will give you participation pricing. I will give you
Cool. Yeah.
payment compensation, and even excess cards." He's like, "Just do it." And I was like, "Great! I haven't even prepared that hard for this event. Let's go, free cruisia." Um, and so I did that on and off for a fair while with Yu-Gi-Oh. I was more of a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player than a judge, but
Okay.
the Bandai
Sure.
TCGs, and I started getting into those a little bit more. Judging became an option because I became quite good friends with the old uh, judge rep for Bandai before it
Oh.
became segregated. Ryan, we were close friends. He knew I had judging experience. We had judging experience together from Yu-Gi-Oh, and he kind of
Okay.
knew I got into the game, asked me if I wanted to help out judge wise and just help run events, and I was like, yeah, for sure. Was like, why
Sweet.
wouldn't I? And I played probably played and played competitively and judged maybe like 50-50 for a little while, and then I just got a lot more into judging, and then the One Piece card game came out, and that was a big kind of decision making in my life. It's like, do I want to take judging full time, or do I want to take this game on like a very competitive level?
Hmm.
And then I shifted into judging, and as you know, I run events for One Piece.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
Mm.
Definitely a happy accident, right? Happy
Yeah,
accident, which has
yeah.
led to a lot of nice sort of things along the way. So you've sort of talked about a couple of TCGs there. So you got Yu-Gi-Oh and
Mm.
One Piece. Have you delved into any other ones? Like I
Yeah.
feel like Magic and Pokemon are your sort of like uh, rites of passage into the TCG world.
Funnily enough, didn't play either of those games for a really long time.
Whoa.
And I
Okay.
probably have only played in total like three Magic games in my entire life.
That's wild.
You'll
That's
catch
wild.
me like hot take, you'll catch me dead playing Commander. Hate that format. Yeah, maddest hot take. I am not shuffling a 100 card deck only to draw 5 lands to have to reshuffle another 100 card deck and only lose because I said something that offended one other player and he convinced everyone else to gang up on me and kill me. So, hot take. I don't like Commander.
Wow, I mean, just on that very briefly,
Yeah.
it's one of the big things why I like the Bandai games. Having a dedicated resource deck just for consistency's sake, because nothing irks me more than I'm like, I practice so hard, I know what I'm doing in my matchups, I know my deck in and out, and oh, what's this? I didn't draw enough lands. Oh, what's this? I drew too many lands. And that's not a skill
It's
expression
so
of
dumb.
me. It's not.
It's
It's
so
not.
dumb.
It's not on me. I couldn't control this. I just drew
100%.
seven cards. Oh, sweet, cool. Five of them are lands, or two of them, or one of them are land.
I completely understand that there is an aspect of RNG to a TCG. I 100%, as someone
Oh.
that has been
Oh
playing
yeah.
at TCGs my
Oh
entire
yeah.
life, I completely understand. But the fact that you are now adding another layer of RNG to that RNG with the whole land system, it depreciates the skill expression of a player. One of the reasons why I love Yu-Gi-Oh so much, and that is
Mm.
the game I will vehemently defend my entire life, and I will die on that hill, is it is a very skill expressive game. You
Oh, okay.
you do a lot of, yes, it's like solitary or whatever that might be saying, all the negatives that come with Yu-Gi-Oh! But if you have two good Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, a game that can come from that, depending like with the decks that they have, can be quite a very skill expressive game. The person can show a
Interesting.
lot of what their capabilities are in a card game. And I find that a lot of successive Yu-Gi-Oh! Players transition to other TCGs really well, because of that level of intricate skill expression, I guess you can say.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you kind of touched on it there, where some people might not enjoy it as much because obviously I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day, back when Yugi was like the was the main protagonist, and the coolest thing in the world was like, oh, I tribute summon my Blue Eyes White Dragon or my Dark Magician, whatever, and then you get
Mm,
like cool traps and all sort of stuff and spells and all sort of stuff. But then obviously the game, like any other card game, evolves and changes, and you get XYZ summons, you get Link summons,
mm,
you get Pendulum, you get all that sort of stuff, and obviously as someone who lost touch of the game from the start of it, you look out in, I'm like, oh, what on earth is this person doing, and why is this person taking XYZ amount of turns. There's also a literal paragraph of text on a card. My eyesight is poor as it is. I don't need to bring a magnifying glass with me as well, and they're
for sure.
very they're very like easy point and shoot sort of targets for Yu-Gi-Oh. But I'm sure there's a lot of like you say, skill to the game because I understand there's hand traps and there's certain cards that
Mm.
sort of really disrupt plays. I see people play Yu-Gi-Oh, not Duel Links, the other one,
Master.
Masters. Yeah, Master Duel, that's the one. And the way that they link to do this, which becomes this, which becomes this, which becomes this, I think that's really cool because it's
Mm,
clearly like a lot of lines of play, and if you
exactly.
disrupt that line, you're like, oh bugger, what happens now? You know? Um,
I use the expression of like a tree with all
mm,
the different branches and all the different pathways. It's like
mm,
playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like that because you might have your big trunk, and that's the easiest and
sure,
linearest way to get to the best
sure.
possible end game. But
Consistency.
then, exactly, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then someone hand traps you at any point in that tree, that's where that branch breaks off.
Mm,
But and then there may be another hand trap somewhere, and then another branch breaks off, and like it's all the way, maybe I'm this far up the tree, and then something happens, and that branch breaks off. So I always use the metaphor of like a tree with hundreds of different branches on it, stemming from that one root, is like how you think about a Yu-Gi-Oh game, is because you've got to know your lines of play to get to the most optimal board, but then also counter for disruptions at any point in time through that building that board,
mm. It's
and
almost like
then
you're accounting for redundancy, you know?
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Mm.
I'm surprised
Um,
you haven't tried Pokemon then, if that's the
Well, okay.
case.
Yeah, I realized I got off track. I apologize. So I started with Yu-Gi-Oh! My brother introduced
Yeah,
me to that when I was like maybe 11 years old, and that was
sure.
probably my main game for a while. Then I got into Pokemon for a little while. Shout outs to Max Kennedy and Max Howard in Canberra. Those boys got me onto this shit. It was a lot of fun. I think the lack of interaction between players was what
Sure. Yep,
disinterested me from the game.
yep, yep, yep.
Going from Yu-Gi-Oh, where interaction happened at every single point. Like, I'm going to draw for turn. Wait, thinking. I've got an interaction. To Pokemon going, I'm going to draw, play my entire turn out, attack, pass. Yeah, your turn. Cool. I'm going to sit and wait.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
It just didn't sit with me. It didn't like sync with me as much as coming from, again, very Yu-Gi-Oh bias, 100%. That's my childhood. But it just didn't sync with me as much, not having the ability to use my skill expression as a player to interrupt them and kind of build that kind of competitive relationship in that game, if that makes sense.
Sure. Okay. Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
fair. I guess
Um,
um everyone's got like I wouldn't like obviously got a bias towards a game that they've grew up with and all sort of stuff. I have been fortunate or unfortunate based on my wallet to try a lot of TCGs over my lifetime, from Magic to Pokemon to Yu-Gi-Oh, and in varying sort of competitive capacities and all that sort of stuff. But
mm,
you know, I guess every game has its own level of skill expression, and it's whatever you enjoy the most, right? There's definitely
sure.
a delicate balance between all of them. But yeah. So you got into judging by accident.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, what would you tell the people who intentionally want to be a judge? Like, what are some of the skills that you look out for in people who want to judge? So, you're obviously a head judge. You obviously
Mhm.
probably vet other judges, say, hey, this person's got the skills
Mhm.
or the or whatever to make them a good judge. What do you look for? What's a good
Okay.
judge to you?
I'm gonna be very straightforward. My first
Yeah,
and
sure.
foremost thing is other judging experience from other TCGs.
Mm,
I think that translates a lot if you have that bar game knowledge. I would prefer that over game knowledge if that makes sense.
interesting.
Um, because there are some things to do with judging that aren't just I know how to play the game. I know
Hmm.
how the cards work.
Okay.
That I need that incorporate probably majority of your time as a judge, where the game knowledge happens at specific instances, judge calls and things like that.
Sure.
Um, the other part of the time is, I guess a skill is people. You're constantly interacting with players.
Hmm. Hmm.
People skills is important, so you make them feel comfortable, empathy, things like that. Being able to understand situations, stress, like stress management, because players can get impatient and players can get quite stressed because again, there is a lot riding on these games, a lot of investment, both emotionally, financially, mentally, you
Yeah,
know,
the whole deal.
into yeah, everything's in there. So people can get very high strung in those stressful moments. So you have to be able to manage that and manage the stress you might feel from that and like just as a byproduct. Um, someone that is this seems a bit strange to say, but someone that can understand when someone asks you to do something, kind of to let you like do, I don't want to say do what you're told, but it's kind of like a if you are asked to do something, the initiative of just getting onto that as soon as possible makes a huge difference. So,
Oh, I see. I see. You
did you
want
get what I'm
to,
saying? Sorry, I might not
yeah.
explain it properly.
You want someone who understands the sense of urgency.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. You can't have
Because we, I,
self-motivated, self-moving sort of thing, because obviously it's not like you got someone who's telling you orders or anything like that. You're obviously wandering around the venue. If someone calls judge or whatever, you got to be sure, hey, I'm on that or X person's on that, and communication and all that sort of stuff is really quite important as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
um, I pride myself on having a team that communicates with one another. I will always want to keep clear lines of communication open with everyone because I think that's how an efficient judge team runs.
Hmm.
I've been on judge teams that don't have clear communication and things can get tangled in the weeds and uh, you know, simple things like letting people know about time extension. That can make a huge difference because I've been, in events where time extensions aren't like chained up to their head cords and people are making decisions on games that have had time extensions, but by a different judge who hasn't notified. So it can be a bit of a mess. So
Mm,
communication, I think, is incredibly important as well.
yeah, you don't want to like subvert a judge's already declared sort of
It's
situation
100%.
or,
Yeah, of course.
clash with them or anything. Yeah, okay, okay, okay. No, that's good. I feel like communication in any sort of field is very important, but especially with judges that, since you're obviously dealing with each isolated incident or each isolated thing one at a time, you got to make sure that you're all on the same page. You all understand, hey, these are the ground rules, these are uh, the rules you understand for extensions, these are the rules you need to understand for so on and so forth. Okay, 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 okay. So you kind of talked about this already, but you obviously really pride on having previous judge experience. Um, there's obviously exams associated and tests associated with becoming a judge and that sort of thing, which obviously, if they do well in it, they obviously pass, so they're, I guess, knowledge-wise, good enough to be a judge. Um, any tips for anyone who wants to take these exams or, you know,
Yeah.
uh, wants to get involved?
Yeah, 100%. Well, unfortunately, with our judging system, the only way you can get involved is by taking the exam. So
Hmm.
that's the first and most important thing. And I'd say tips for that, probably three major ones is one, read the Q&A, top to bottom. Q&A
Oh.
will be very helpful with certain rulings. They might use questions from the Q&A to in the questionnaire, in the
Hmm.
exam, sorry. That's probably one of the most important ones. Two, the comprehensive rulebook actually goes over a lot of interactions. And if you
Oh.
can not only read but understand how the comprehensive rulebook kind of like structures itself gameplay wise, everything is very similar. Like with timings of effects and those kind of interactions. And if you are capable in understanding the comprehensive rulebook, you'd be able to read a situation and go, okay, cool, based off what the comprehensive rulebook says, a once per turn effect by this card and then by this card, given turn player, this card would resolve first, so then that card could then get, you know what I mean, like you could have that understanding because you understand how the words on the card do what they do, if that makes sense.
Reading the card explains the card.
Reading the card explains the card. That's a great point, Cheston. Great, fantastic points. They're 2 points, and then number 3 is just being comfortable making commitments, because they're gonna ask you maybe like 60 questions, or like I can't remember how many it was. The last time I've done it, it was like maybe like 30 questions in like
20
15
minutes
minutes or something.
something?
You had like, yeah, you only have like 30 or 40 seconds to answer each
Yeah, it
question.
was less than a minute.
So you had to be very concise and very on point. So you needed to be very confident in your abilities, I guess is a better way of putting that.
Because
They're
I
the three I
guess,
would give.
I personally tried for the judge test, and some of them are, some of the interactions threw me out for a loop, or I just didn't sequence it correctly, which is, it's on completely on me.
Mm.
And I guess I didn't at the time understand why you needed such quick urgency of, let's say, 20 minutes for 30 questions or whatever like that. But I
Mm.
guess when you're on the spot and you've got two players looking up to you for a judge call, right? You obviously don't want to keep them lingering on. You need to be, I guess, self-sufficient, because I can't just say, "Hey, Jacob, hey, whatever, can you give me a hand with this?" Because then you're basically not doing the job, sort of thing. You're just like
Yeah.
acting almost like a buzzer, say, "Hey, this is happening, and like let's have a chat about this." So yeah, okay, I
Mm.
see that, I see that. Um,
So that will
yeah,
get you your level 1. And then if you wanted to get into other situations, I'm always open for new judges. I try and get a new judge in every event. So if you do have your level 1 and you do want to judge, please reach out to me. I would love to have you on my team. When I have events, I post up on the pages all the time when we have events,
mm,
when LBG run them for people to judge. Just like it's like well, it's one of those like fill out form things. You fill them out,
sure.
you give me details, and then I check. I go through the list. I find the stuff that I want. I bring them on. I can contact them all, hire the staff, and we go from there.
How many different levels are there? You just talked about level one, and you're obviously a head judge, so there's got to be a few in between.
So there's level 1, which is essentially you have your credentials to judge events.
Sure.
That can be ranging from tier 1 events to tier 3 events. Tier 1 events being locals, tier 2 events being regionals, tier 3 events being national. You need your level 1 to be an official judge for those.
Sure. Bare minimum.
Level
Bare
2
minimum.
judge, yeah, bare minimum, yeah. Level 2 judge is essentially someone in my position is in charge of those tier
Okay.
events. So if a regional, I am the head judge, or national, so I'm the head judge for those. And then level 3 judge, or I'm not sure if they call it level 3 or level 0. It's a bit strange. The numbers are strange, but the level 3 judge is essentially there's like 2 of them currently, or a very short, small amount of them, and they have the final say on rules.
Interesting. Okay.
We ask them, go through. They have direct contact with Bandai, and they can communicate back and forth, and then they will give the final ruling. If we have a ruling that is contentious for whatever reason.
Hmm. Have you ever been in a situation where you needed to talk to them like that? Because I feel like that'd be a very
I
niche
I I'm a
scenario.
I regularly keep lines open, to be fair. I like to just clarify certain things and little questions that I had,
Sure.
especially earlier on in the game, during sets like 1 to 6 in particular. I was in direct contact with the higher judges pretty frequently, just to clarify my own kind of understanding of things and make things smoother for when I run events.
No, that's fair. I think, yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think of a scenario where, a level one or level two wouldn't be able to perhaps have a better, good understanding, and you needed like the level zero, level three, whatever it's called, to like,
Well, I guess do you remember two cost sugar?
yeah, two cost
Two
sugar.
cost
Yeah,
mono green
yeah, yeah,
sugar?
yeah.
Yeah, so there were some interactions with that which had, if you play two cost sugar and a card um, is played that rests the card on play, or if you play a card as turn player that rests the card and sugar, and you choose target as sugar, then does sugar get her rest effect and can, do the, things like
Oh,
that. When that first came out, that was, and there was no other cards and rulings similar to it. And so when that all came up, we're like, hey, this is the circumstance, or this is the specific scenario with the two specific cards. How does this
Mm.
specific reaction, like interaction, play off? And he's like, because of this, and this reason. So it does come up, and it generally comes up with during the lifespan of the game. As newer cards come out with newer effects, you're like, nothing has done this before. How do we clarify it?
Mm.
Like the OP13, the Luffy, the multicolor Luffy that says when this card is played, like you can't play any other card. People were asking
Oh, okay.
people were asking about Trafalgar Law, for example, with the green yellow Trafalgar Law leader, where you can play from hand.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and they were like, "Oh, can you still can you subvert that by playing that?" And some judges would think, even one of the judges that I've interacted in the past were like, "Oh, it doesn't, you could still play something that is played off by an effect." And then used a different ruling from something that was a past. But because that ruling had a slightly different wording to it, couldn't take that as gospel. So we needed clarification. Yeah.
Hmm. 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 Definitely, definitely very niche scenarios, but yeah,
Mm.
super
Oh
interesting.
yeah, for sure. But they're the ones that get asked. They're the niche. They will be the ones that they ask you,
Which
Cheston.
is
That's why you have to know.
which is wild. I would have just, I guess, because I guess everyone, anyone who plays a game would have, I guess, fundamental basic knowledge of like this is how this should work and this is how this should work, or at least they would be able to they'd be able to talk it out, But I guess
Yeah.
the ones where it's a little funny or they don't encounter it very often is probably the ones you're probably thinking of. Um,
Mm.
what do you enjoy most about being a judge?
Honestly, the community building aspect is something I enjoy them.
Hmm.
I love the community that the One Piece, like what the One Piece community has become, just like on a national scale, and seeing some regular faces at events, and some of the people that I've been around in card games for a long, long time. There are some faces that I've known for decades at this point, right? There's people I've known for a long, long time, our relationship included. We've known each other for a very, very long time,
It is what it
right?
is.
Exactly. But there are a lot of faces in the One Piece community that are new to TCG,
Hmm. Sure.
and they have committed to coming to every One Piece event, and they're one of the regulars, and I'm seeing the improvement from some of these players as well. And
Hmm.
every event they kind of get closer and closer and closer, and then this event they start topping, and it's a really cool experience seeing the community grow in that sense. And I guess that makes me want to continue judging, is seeing the enjoyment on like the people's places when they play cards.
Seeing people grow and that sort of thing. No, that's nice. No, that's nice. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, kind of reminds me of my current situation to a certain degree. I obviously got into One Piece to play, got competitive. My smooth brain decides, you know what, I'm just gonna play non-meta decks, just for a bit of fun, and I just thought, I'll play enough, and it'll get there. Obviously, there's a lot of
Mm.
hard work and practice and dedication that goes into topping, and obviously playing the right deck probably helps quite a fair bit. You know, um, yeah, just a little bit. So I thought, I honestly, I kind of gave up on One Piece. I'll be honest with you. You know,
That's fair.
OP13 came around. I'm like, oh, this looks kind of interesting. I'll give it another go. Imu, big bad, evil guy, but obviously his deck construction was pretty cheap, pretty cost effective to just try it again, and then commentating came along, and I get to hang out with the people that I love to hang out with. I get to be with the community, and I get to talk about what I love. Why not, right? And I think that's a not quite an accident like your judge scenario, but you get to be part of the community while also being part of the community from like a
100%.
different angle,
100%. Yeah.
and it's nice, right? Like I don't need to be necessarily be a player to fully enjoy it. I get to, nothing precludes me because if I judge or if I commentate or whatever like that to say, hey, let's go out for a night out afterwards, or like to celebrate or whatever it is. Like nothing stops me from that, or having the good old fashioned chit chats or anything like that. So yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
I see what you mean. Community is, and I'm very glad the One Piece community is what it is. Every
It's a
every
great community.
yeah, every community is not perfect. I'll give you that. There's always going to be
Mm.
shenanigans here and there, but I think for the majority part, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Especially positives of the One Piece community.
yeah, yeah. I feel like everyone's quite approachable, and One Piece is such a vast multimedia, sort of juggernaut of a thing. You talk about the manga, the cards, the obviously the anime, and all the other sort of associated sort of things that go alongside it. So you always find fans, right? Um, Once you
Mm,
just want to give it a go. So we talked about what do you enjoy most about it. Now, what's the
mm.
hardest thing about being a judge?
Okay. Are you asking from a floor judge perspective or a head judge perspective?
Oh, okay, all right. Let's start with head judge perspective. Let's start with
Head
head
judge
judge
perspective.
perspective. Yeah.
Um, the hardest thing, which two things. First thing,
Hmm.
the hardest thing for me when I was first starting out as a head judge, I guess it's changed for me. The first thing for me was managing my staff and understanding what I expected of them and what I needed them to do. That was kind of hard to kind of figure out. But then after a while, it became a bit better. And once you got the groove, you kind of understood what you needed to run a successful event. Nowadays, I guess for me is because I don't want to brag or anything, but I run relatively well run events. Like
You've
the
got
quality.
practice. You've got experience,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. And now for me, the hardest part for me is taking on the feedback and making the little improvements where I can.
Hmm.
Um, because, I I only get so many to work on a year because I only have so much I can work on a year because I only have so many events. And I want to try and incorporate everything from like getting, as I mentioned, new staff in, so new judges, so people get experience. I always run, I always try and focus on what they can improve on and where to better themselves. Scott, LPG and I are considering putting a judge program into getting people into
Ooh,
a bit more experience. It's a little
very
bit down the
exciting.
line, but it's something that we're working on. But yeah, that would say from a head judge perspective is probably what I would say is most difficult
Okay.
for me
Now,
personally.
now, now for a floor judge.
Floor judge. Floor judge is interesting. It's been a while, so take
Oh, I'm
what I'm
sorry.
saying with a grain of salt. Yeah. No. I guess floor judge for me, I would say is what I would say is hardest when I was doing it more frequently was just always making sure that I was on while I was on the floor.
Mm,
And when you talk with a player and have a conversation with a player, that's fine to have that conversation with that player, but you need to be able to like snap off. And if a judge call is done, like you need to like stop that conversation, like
mm.
like cut it, cut its head off, and then get to where that needs to go. Like you can't. And me, sometimes I think I'm a little bit too nice, and I will have to like try and finish that conversation in a manner, and like I have to learn to just cut that off. Something needs to be done. Let's go get that done.
Mm, You got priorities, and obviously, I can imagine, if you need to judge like a friend or someone like that, you know it obviously got to make sure that you be objective with the whole thing, right?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in those cases, I always tell people, or my judge staff at least, it's like if you have a judge call with someone that you personally know, call someone over and get someone else to judge for you.
It's fair. Stay
Then
objective
that's
and
never
just
going to be an issue.
remove yourself from the
Yeah,
from the from the situation.
yeah. Then it'll never be an issue. So no stress.
Hmm. And before we wrap up, now
Sure.
you've been judging for quite some time.
Hmm.
How many years? How many years now? Quick
If we
math.
can't go back to Yu-Gi-Oh, probably like 15, close to.
Yeah, right. So that's
Yeah,
that's a lot of years.
it's a lot of
Um,
time.
yeah, yeah. What is the toughest call that you've ever had to make?
Ooh.
It can be from a ruling perspective, emotional perspective, because you would have seen a lot in 15 years.
I've got one from a ruling perspective and one from like a bit of an emotional perspective.
Shoot, shoot, shoot.
Um, all right, so the ruling perspective one was a Yu-Gi-Oh one, but do you know how chain links work?
To a certain degree.
Yeah, so basically is if I activate an effect, and I'm
Sure.
versing you, for example, I
Yeah.
activate an effect and you have something in response to that effect.
Yeah, sure.
You then chain whatever you're activating in response to my card.
Yep.
And then if I have something in response, I can then chain something to your card.
The
And
stack,
then
like
we get what's
magic.
called a chain link, like a stack. Yeah. I once had to resolve a 13 chain link before.
Oh, how?
Um,
Oh, that's messy.
it was two trap decks that had both hand. Like I can't remember. Someone had started with a searcher, someone had hand trapped that searcher, and then it just got a back and forth of negate, 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 negate things back and forth, and then the reason why they called me over was one of the cards was an illegal activation in the middle of the
Ah.
chain link.
So then
So
it
we
just
had
gets
to kind
messy.
of it was it took a while. I'm not gonna lie, it took a while to get that done and dusted. But that's probably the most complicated thing I had to do because we had to like revert back, but there was also hidden knowledge gained because cards had been flipped and revealed in hand and things. So we had to kind
Right.
of figure mission. But
Yeah.
that was probably difficult call ruling wise, emotional wise. Um, there was a Dragon Ball Super event. I think it was Nationals Dragon Ball Super of 2019,
So
maybe.
high up there, right? In terms of, I
Yeah, it
guess,
was a national very high up there.
yeah.
Um, but there was a group of newer players because they were in the local area and they happened to get tickets. They were like from Adelaide. There was a lady that was playing,
Mm, mm, mm.
and she was and I said this is a fair while ago, so my memory is a little bit shattered on it. But I remember having this conversation, was like seeing something that had happened where she had made an illegal move, something with a search. I can't remember exactly, but I went up to her and I'm like, hey, I just saw what had happened. Let's just fix this up and reverse it and all this
Yeah, of
kind of
course.
thing. And I remember trying to be as very clear as I could. But I think she misunderstood what I was saying and she picked her deck up and scooped it into her life and like kind of scooped it all together because she was very nervous and she was like visibly nervous and like
Sure,
shaky and
sure,
kind
sure,
of
sure.
and I was like, whoa, let's not let that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
now we are getting like, whoa, okay, can we just slow down for a second? And like it's like, can we just slow down, can we stop, that let's keep it this blah 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 blah. And I had this conversation with her and then she just starts to cry
Oh no.
and she's just crying in front of me, and I'm like, no, and I can't. I'm trying my best to be as like, it's not your fault as possible, but it's
Yeah,
just,
of course.
it's so hard. And at the time, I was a floor judge, and I was like, you know what, this is well past my responsibility. Hey, get
Judge.
over here. She just sort this out. I explained the situation. I apologized to her profusely. Um, and yeah, that was a mission. That was also a mission.
Yeah, I guess you can't really stop nerves, right? Because as you said, nerves on the day for everyone is kind of crazy everywhere. For both a floor judge or a judge or competitors, right? Like everyone's on edge. Everyone wants to make the right calls, the right decisions, and all that sort of stuff. I know I said it was gonna be the last thing, but I'm actually really
Mm.
curious.
So,
When you kind of you touched on it briefly, when hidden knowledge gets exposed.
yeah.
Right. So for example, I have cards in my hand. I haven't used it until I do something with it, and therefore now I've got X in my hand. How do you
Mhm.
normally resolve that sort of thing? Because obviously
Mhm.
that's a very hard thing to rewind. It's a very hard thing to
100%.
to take back. You can't just
100%.
unforget. You know.
Each game, I would love to give you a simple answer, but there's not going to be.
It's not gonna be, of course.
Each game, yeah, each game has a hidden knowledge is ruled in a slightly
Okay.
with the way of resolving set effects. Some games will do their best to repair the game state to make it a playable game state so both
Mm-hmm.
players can continue playing. Some games will be a bit more strict on if a certain amount of hidden knowledge has been revealed, the game is done. We
Oh.
penalize, and yeah, then becomes the line between repairable and irreparable game state is very very thin, and it falls into irreparable in the number of the strangest fashions of ways, and can make it quite difficult.
Okay.
Um, I generally like to, my personal
Mm-hmm.
opinion on hidden knowledge and things like that. Um, it'd be very determined on the factor of the game state in particular, and what's going
Sure.
on. But if the card knowledge gives a certain level of unfair advantage, if that was done maliciously, the person that gets the advantage should be penalized. If
Okay.
it was done unintentionally, the person that gets the advantage should still be penalized, but not to such an extent. Um, this is why I don't know, you've been to my events before, so I have a
Mm.
very specific ruling when it comes to I follow physical precedence over verbal precedence.
Chess rules. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, similar to just rules, not exact.
Sure.
But as someone came up to me once and was like, "Look here, let me give you an example of some way you can subvert that." And he
Mm-hmm.
used an example of like having Haughty Jones, the 7 cost green rush
Yep.
card,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and putting it down but not committing to the action of putting it back in hand to see the response of the player and baiting it that way.
Oh.
And I said, look, I said that is a very, very fair way of kind of subverting the rules and the systems, but that is going to happen once an event and only once that event. The moment you do it a second time, that is penalized with the game. Like that is now a repeated offense. I
Mm-hmm.
could penalize you with the game loss.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is also so, but there are also times where I think it was the top 8 match. Jimmy Share, when he played in the 2025 November Sydney Regionals, he was incredibly nervous when he was playing and he drew for turn. And as he draws, he draws and then he sits, like he looks at the card, then adds it to his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He had drawn the card and he was nervous and you could see his hand shaking. And I think he had dropped the card and it revealed what the card was.
Ah. Okay. So that's accidental,
There's a
obviously.
difference. See, and there is a very clear, distinctive difference between those two actions. And if that is what had happened versus someone maliciously revealing the card, I can then judge them both based on two different scenarios,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Mm.
It's like
Mm.
how the hidden knowledge was revealed is
Right.
very important.
Okay. All right. Very cool. It's a
Mm.
it's a lot to think about, and I guess that's why judges need to go through an exam and all this sort of stuff. Just from a gameplay but knowledge, and obviously, like you said, you got to be have the EQ to deal with certain situations because there's a lot of reading of the situation that you're in to make sure that you've got the full picture and all sort of stuff, and you got to stay objective and that sort of thing. But with that, look, Jacob, just want to say thank you very much for your time. I would love to commentate and be at your future events. I know you do an excellent job, and the team that you work with is obviously usually and always fantastic. Any shout outs you want to give out before we close out?
Firstly, I want to thank you for having me on, Cheston. It is always a pleasure, my friend. I loved having you at my last event, and I would look forward to having you at more events to come. Big shout out to LPG, first and foremost. They pay my bills. Can't complain. No, we have been working together for a very long time since the start of One Piece, working on events together and running them, and they've been incredibly solid at, when I need things for my events, they always provide, so we can put on the best events.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the TO I work with is super responsive and works with me, not against me, and that is always an absolute pleasure. So when I say things like, "Hey, our stream needs to work a certain way," or we need the games done a certain way, he's like, "Yep, cool, blah blah blah, let's get that done." So big props to them. They always are really responsive. Just a bit of a backhand. LPG are fantastic. You're amazing.
Thanks.
Honestly, all the communities out there that I've had the pleasure of getting to know and being a part of. You've all been absolutely amazing. Specifically, the One Piece community. You guys, every community I've had the pleasure of getting to know in my travels on running the events with everyone has always been so awesome. It's been so cool to get to know each and every one of you, and I look forward and I am privileged to have you at my events, and I cannot wait to have you all continue to come to my events. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much, Jacob. And with that, we'll see you around in the next video. Have a good one, everyone.